All right, this is part 3, Federalist 5. Sorry, the video got cut off there. I'll just start with paragraph 4 that says, should the people of America divide themselves into 3 or 4 nations, would not the same thing happen? Would not similar jealousies arise and be in like manner cherished? Instead of their being joined in affection and free from all apprehensions of different interests, envy and jealousy would soon extinguish confidence and affection, and the partial interest of each confederacy, instead of the general interests of all America, would be the only objects of their policy and pursuits. So he says, would it not be a shame if we, like the British, the English, Scottish, the Welsh, for many generations, for many hundreds of years, become divided, and all that will be left is distrust amongst us? Would that not be a shame? And he says, part of the paragraph from the letter of Queen Anne to Scottish Parliament, he gives you a line from that. Joined in affection and free from all apprehension of different interests. So, if we stay disunited, if we divide our country into 3 or 4 confederacies, all we will have is, we won't have affection towards one another. We won't have love and trust. It'll be all distrust. So he says, you got to be smart. You got to not fall for it. And then again, he reminds us that we will fall victim and be tools in the hands of foreign powers. So he keeps on reminding us of that. And continues, hence, like most other bordering nations, they would always be either involved in dispute and war or live in the constant apprehension of them. So he says, we'll be like the nations of Europe or elsewhere in the world, where we will have borders with other countries, and sooner or later it'll turn into distrust and war. So he says we got to be aware of that. We'll be just like other nations in Europe. We will be, before you know it, we'll find reasons to distrust one another and go to war with one another. So he says, we got to be careful about that. Okay, continues, the most sanguine advocates for 3 or 4 confederacies cannot reasonably suppose that they would long remain exactly on an equal footing in point of strength, even if it was possible to form them so at first. He says, if you're wise, if you actually use your brain and think about it, even if you're thinking about confederacies, even if you're thinking about dividing the United States into 3 or 4 confederacies, don't you think before too long one side or one confederacy will become stronger than the other confederacies? Even if you start them at same level, even if they are at the same level of strength at first, before you know it, before too long, one confederacy will be stronger than the rest. Yet what human contrivance or contrivance can secure the continuance of such equality? Who can create something? Who can invent something? What kind of machine can you create? What kind of a system can you create to keep all of them equal? This is not going to happen. Independent of those local circumstances which tend to beget and increase power in one part and to impede its progress in another part, There are some natural reasons, some natural circumstances that will make one confederacy stronger, and it will block the other confederacy from getting strong. It will impede it from getting strong. Impede means blocking it, making it difficult for them to get strong. We must advert to the effects of that superior policy and good management which would probably distinguish the government of one above the rest, and by which their relative equality in strength and consideration would be destroyed. For it cannot be presumed that the same degree of sound policy, prudence, and foresight would uniformly be observed by each of these confederacies for a long succession of years. So he says, think about it. Let's say in the United States you divide the 13 states into 3 or 4 confederacies. Let's say even at the start they have equal strength. Don't you think after a short while, because of natural circumstances, or because one side, one confederacy might have talented people as leaders, before you know it, don't you think one confederacy is going to become stronger than the others? And wouldn't you naturally think that when one side becomes stronger than the other, before soon they'll start planning things. They'll start saying, well, we're stronger, we might be able to go take the other side's resources. If they're weak, it's not our problem. We can go take advantage of what they have, and they're not going to be able to stand up to us. They will not be strong enough to stop us. So he says, this is what history teaches us. This is what's happened over and over and over. So do not be fools. Do not be mistaken that this will not happen to you people, to you Americans. Then he continues in the next paragraph, whenever and from whatever causes it might happen, and happen it would, that any one of these nations or confederacies should rise on the scale of political importance much above the degree of her neighbors, that moment would those neighbors behold her with envy and fear. And this part makes very sense. It says you have 3 confederacies. Before you know it, one side is going to get stronger than the other. The sides that are going to be a little weaker and stay weak, they'll start distrusting the strong confederacy. They won't help it. They look at the strong confederacy and they say, maybe these people are going to take advantage of us one day. Maybe they will take our resources. So it works on both sides. The strong side says, it's not our problem they're weak. We should go take their resources. We should tell them the way things are. We should tell them the way they should act. And the weak side naturally comes and says, well, these guys are stronger. We can't trust them anymore. So it says this thing will continue on and will cause trouble. So we'll continue with this Federalist in the next video.